not like one really definition. To everybody, it's something different.
I think it's the definition of it is undefinable. I guess there is no definition. I think just because one person will have, one person will think it's about drinking 40s and sparing for change, down in Hollywood with a green mohawk, and that's couldn't be furthest from my definition.
To me, punk rock is about, it's ageless for one thing, and I think it's more about challenging the hidden rules of a certain culture of society.
My definition of punk is borrowed from my friend D. Boone. Punk's whatever we made it to be, which means sometimes you just don't find yourself fitting in, so you have to create a parallel universe in order to find a way to express yourself.
It's an avenue to express your, not necessarily angst, although I think it kind of started out that way, but to express your creativity in a way that's outside of the given norms.
Music that challenges the status quo, music that is outspoken and innovative, and a community that's inclusive.
People getting together and putting shows together, putting all sorts of things together.
For everybody else, it's people find different things and so different people. For some people, it's like an escape. Some people, they can just, how would you say, they can relate to the music.
It's really punk. It should be something that challenges your ideas.
Just lets you go wild, kind of.
It's kind of a scene without rules, except the main rule. I guess it had one rule, which was like let the freak flag fly.
I like like the crowd too, like being with friends and stuff, and the people are real interesting. But the music, as far as the music, I don't know, it's just fast. I like fast music.
I was glad that here was a trend in music that embraced the things I liked in music, which was hard music, loud music, intense music. I had gradually worked my way up to wanting things that were harder and more intense than Blue Oyster Cult and Kiss and Aerosmith and that sort of thing.
I think I learned more through music and punk rock than I did in school.
The sense of community, like in San Pedro, everybody helps each other out as far as, benefit shows or art shows or anything.
I learned about sexism and racism and homophobia. I learned that those things aren't really that good.
It provides, again, an avenue where you can express yourself.
It opens your mind to to be more accepting of other stuff, and then it lets you be yourself, and listen to cool music.
I really like just the emotion of it, just the high emotion. I mean, I think I turn to punk rock for the anger outlet the same way I turn to like country for the maybe introspective outlet. And yeah, punk rock's a good place to just let it all out.
I think anytime you try to challenge the cultural norms or, again, the hidden rules within a culture or society, there's going to be kind of a rush that comes along with that. But again, you're creating another set of hidden rules within that counterculture that you're involved in.
I learned how to start my own business too, which doesn't sound too punk, but it's the truth. I learned how to travel. I learned geography through it. I learned where Rhode Island was and where Spain was. I always thought Spain was that way, and it probably could be, but now I know it's that way.
Just the dynamic of us being involved and not just spectators attracted us big time.
So I liked that there was all that immediacy to it. And then the whole not waiting in line for some label or something to do something, but okay, we're gonna pull together enough money to make a recording and we're just gonna make a record. We're gonna make a show and it's just gonna happen, and we're not waiting for the rock star train to roll into town and hope to get a seat.
That it's confrontational and that it challenges people's ideas, and I think, I'm kind of like that. I've always been somewhat confrontational. I don't like to let things go unchallenged. I like people to clarify what they mean and to be committed to something once they say they're going to. Once if they say they believe something, I want to know why they believe it. So punk has that attitude, you know. It's like, why? It's like a bratty little kid asking you.
When I was about 14, my brother's girlfriend had the CD of a band called Bikini Kill, and she said it was too fast and angry for her, so she gave it to me. I kind of looked it up and started following everything that had to do with bands like that.
I just was always hanging out with a group of friends, and he just kept insisting that we should all check out Black Flag, and I just got into it from there.
Being in Pedro, I knew about the Minutemen. Andy Tuck, a friend of mine from, kindergarten on, turned me on to Black Flag.
First time I heard about punk rock, I used to read a newspaper. Actually, it was a pulp magazine from Madison, Wisconsin. My friend and I were looking through it, and it said, "Punk rock guitarist seeks band, Novocaine guitar," and it went on with the description of the style.
When I first heard about it, it was pictures in Cream magazine. Then there was a guy here in town who played drums for the Weirdos. We came to find out we were jamming with one of our buddies and saw him walking around with Kotex around his neck, and he told us about this scene. His name's Nicky B. He told us about this scene up in Hollywood where people wrote their own songs.
I was in high school when I started reading this magazine called Punk Magazine, and it was about the scene in New York, and it had stuff about like the Ramones and Patti Smith and a group called the Dictators, groups that were this was like probably 1975.
My old neighbor used to listen to it. And then when I went to high school, I started hanging out with kids that listen to punk when I didn't even know they did. So, you know, everybody around me for some reason was into that, so I just got into it. I started going to shows and all of that.
Definitely 100% through skateboarding. Usually it was, you know, Circle Jerks and Black Flag and Minor Threat.
Punk rock fashion.
Wear whatever you want to wear. I think it's a oxymoron, kind of.
Well, it has to be something original.
And then a lot of times people are like, I don't want to wear that because everybody's wearing that. Man, who cares? Everybody does everything.
Well, in the old days, it was you made your own. You went to thrift stores and stuff and put together your own outfits, painted on them, tore them apart, put them back together with safety pin. It was a very individualistic expression. It's
Great if it's homemade. It's something that you were able to do yourself without having to spend a bunch of money on it. You know.
There's so many different subcultures within punk rock, but most universally, it seems like people just want anything that makes you look like an aggressive person.
Looking intense and crazy and a little bit scary and rough and unkempt in a stylish way. the spiked hair and like, oh my God, I'm so electric, I'm just spiked up. Ah!
When I was younger, I think I was the only one out of all my friends that didn't really buy into the whole fashion. All of my friends who were kind of in the punk scene thought, well, if I get piercings, get a mohawk, shave my head, I'll be considered more punk. But they were kind of the more insecure people, whereas now I've learned just probably the punkest people I know would just look like your average, male or female.
It was really in your face. It was outrageous, and it was fun. It was empowering to cut your hair into a mohawk and wear bondage pants and walk down the street and have everybody look at you in shock. Now people, doesn't have that same effect. The shock value, I think, is worn off quite a bit.
Whatever you want to be, I guess you could wear a barrel and you'd be punk rock. individuality. That's really more the thing. So if you, I don't know, if you want to wear a shower curtain or something, that's pretty punk.
You have to be able to carry it off. You have to be able to to have a fearless attitude. So, whether you're wearing a paper bag on your head or a lampshade hat or a shoe on your head, whatever it is that you decide to make into your fashion, if you wear it with a fearless attitude, then that's punk rock fashion.
And now, I guess you can buy punk clothes.
It's not going to the mall and buying something that looks punk, that looks cliche punk, like a Halloween costume of what a punk would be like.
Was it 2012? 77, so 70, 87, 97, 07, that's 30, so it's 35 years.
It was kind of a reaction against status quo, and you can't say that would be the same after so many years, of course.
It's a different animal, it's not new, and so for someone to go into that idea, they're embracing, they're trying to look at an aesthetic and ideology that is from the past and reinvent it for themselves or reimagine it or relive it.
We didn't really think it was a style of music. We thought that was up to each band. We thought it was more of a state of mind. So a young person today can pretty much, in some ways, draw a parallel to what we were experiencing.
The places that I've been playing, there's a lot of women and people of color involved, and that makes me really happy because the original punk scene was very inclusive. There were people from all over LA involved, and then for a while it was dominated by white males.
Seems like it had a good basis of community, and it seems like not so many people were taking themselves so seriously. Now it's a lot of conflicting opinions and a lot of alienation. Everyone thinks they're right about everything. It's a lot of dogma. I don't know. I just think people are so much more self-involved, it seems, now than what seems to have created it.
Punk's got to be kind of different up to each individual experience. But I do think there's forms of it that still are kind of true to its roots and not so co-opted by market forces and merch, things like that.
Punk rock was trying to be this revolution, and now it's become an institution. There's really positive things that have come of it, and because people look at what was done and they embrace the immediacy, they embrace the do-it-yourself, they embrace the lack of pretense, and those are important things that to the people today, inventing new ideas and new aesthetic ideas and new mechanism ideas and doing things today can be inspired by, but they're not doing punk rock. They're doing something else. It's today.
Another big difference is everybody's sort of aware that you could release your own record now, and you could book your own tour. I think back in the day, it wasn't as apparent. Like, people would get shocked when they heard that.
The fundamentals of it are completely changed. You can still spike your hair, you can make a mohawk, you can play through the same amps and the same chords, and you can do, but it somehow is going to be different because at the core it is very different.
Those more cool bands, and now all the bands kind of sound the same. Kids would actually have a mosh pit and stuff. Now it's just like, you go to a show and it's all the old folks in the pit, right? All the kids are just standing around.
On a short term and on a low scale, it has a big impact. Like, there's people that do their own benefit shows for cancer or pet shelters, or they do. A lot of people do benefits and start their own zines that actually make an impact with younger people.
You know, it's different bands talking about like peace or different bands talking about violence or other bands talking about like animal rights and stuff like that. I guess if you listen to music, it influences your ideas in life.
What punk did for me, it really made me feel like I could get up on stage and have a voice. That I could not only, not only get on stage and make my voice heard there, but I could go out into my community and make my voice heard there. And then I realized it doesn't have to stop at my community. I can mold my world. I can change my world. And that's the really exciting thing that happens with punk, is that because it's inclusive and anybody can go in and be a part of it, you also feel like anybody can shape the world. We are in the driver's seat.
It depends on what part of culture we're talking about. I think a lot of people, were completely untouched by punk rock. So there was no impact. The impact on the music scene has been huge. It went from being a counterculture revolving around music where you could create your own thing, do your own thing, be supported by a group of like-minded people. And that impacted the corporate rock scene.
I think the biggest positive things are the not waiting for the establishment train to take you to whatever you're trying to do. I think that's the most important influence punk rock brought to culture.
Historically, it was about the music and creating a counterculture movement that encouraged people to do their own thing and to create their own art and their own music. And I think that definitely impacts society.
It's like a yes and no.
Women are objectified in every scene. So yes and no. We make our own scene in terms of our liberation as women and our approach to being women. I think it's really important that we can create who we want to be as a feminine entity and demand not being objectified, but women were certainly objectified in punk rock.
I think the first thing I ever heard that maybe women weren't treated equally was in a 7 Second song, not just Boys Fun, where I was like, I don't get it. It seems pretty equal to me, but there's scenes that definitely to this day don't treat women equal. I've never been a part of any music scene that didn't treat everybody equally.
Early punk scene had a lot of women involved. When I went up to Hollywood and started seeing these gigs, many of the bands had women in them. It was a big difference, and not just singing back up and playing tambourine.
I think in the early punk scene, women were treated fairly. I think we were, and we didn't, I think what happened was that women didn't wait around to be invited in. We just got in there, we went up on stage, we started taking pictures, being in bands, making our own zines. We were involved in every aspect of the punk scene, and there was never any question about, can a woman do this? It was just something that we took for granted. Like, yes, everybody can do it, and nobody asked permission.
I think punk rock was more open to women than at the music side of it than what preceded it. Oddly, for something that had a macho, very masculine tone, I think opened things up for women.
When I first got into it, I was about 14, and I've never witnessed women treated any differently. Actually, it was kind of the opposite, because when I first started in punk rock, I got into the riot girl scene, which was all girl bands and feminism and the girl revolution movement. And so because of that, that's kind of where I learned everything about punk rock, and I've never witnessed anything different than just awesome support for women, even to this day now.
Sure and no. Both.
Yeah, it was in the dancing. When it went to hardcore in the 80s, Yeah, there was a lot of young men with a lot of, I don't know, they would be taking that energy to Little League or Pop Warner, but they were bringing it to the gigs.
First, a lot of people, a lot of kids go there and maybe people will be mad or something, but it's kind of a way to let out your, to put out a lot of energy and aggression, kind of.
It was a counterculture. There are hidden rules within any culture, and I think that certain people latched onto it as a way of expressing violence. Saw a lot of friends get hurt, a lot of broken legs, broken arms, busted noses, that kind of thing from dancing.
Well, I mean, kids always get in fights, obviously, but that's just because. But that can happen anywhere, I guess, any type of party. It doesn't have to be a party with punk kids and stuff. But not in the pits and stuff, they're not very violent.
Nothing happens now. There's no violence at punk rock shows. I mean, we played a show with a couple punk bands, and there's nothing. I mean, there's a little bit of dancing, and it's just like the early shows at the Mask and whatnot. There was no violence at those either. It was only when it became big enough that mainstream people were interested in it as a challenge to their ideas.
I'm sure there's that type of punk rock still around that's very jock dominated. The punk shows I go to are inclusive, and people are, welcome creativity, and people support each other. So they're not violent in that sense. And if there is violence, it's all about expressing maybe anger that you have inside of you, but not necessarily, not against each other, but just about venting.
Now, it depends on what show you go to, because you could go to a show that's kind of like a big, it'll bring all the creeps out of the woodwork, like, some reunion big show, and there'll be tons of violence.
I mean, they can be because, alcohol and stuff.
I think it depends on different areas of punk rock. The hardcore scene, I only went to one show once, and that was probably the most violent show I've ever been to.
That sort of violent expression, I think, has lingered in the punk scene. I bet if I went to a punk show, like go see the Descendants or something, I'm going to see a lot of people slam dancing, as a way to hurt other people, which I never agreed with.
I think it's a different kind of violence right now. I think it's a lot more violence on the band's behalf. It's like this bands like Hoax or get a lot of flack for assaulting audience members. The singer punches himself and he punches people, and Francis Hurl and the Holograms, the singer would whip people with chains.
For me, it's just, I don't care if it's dead or not. I listen to it. It doesn't matter to me.
It's a useless cliche. I mean, it means nothing. It's just a genre of music.
Depends on your definition of punk. I'm still punk rock in the way I live my life, but I definitely, because of my work, I'm a teacher, I have to work within a certain set of rules. But I throw in my punk rock aesthetic everywhere. It's all around me. It's part of who I am.
I think sometimes people are reflecting on their own experiences and their own community, and maybe something that they had and that they valued about it has died, but that doesn't mean it's died for everyone, because there's a lot of people that are creating new things from what those of us who were around at the beginning, what we started, it's being translated and it's being taken further, and it's just really, it's growing, so it's very exciting. It's something that goes through changes. It's a metamorphosis.
For me, I know I'm involved in something, and I know a lot of my friends are involved in it, and it's definitely the most alive thing that I've ever witnessed. So
It has to keep reinventing itself or being reborn. And, for something to be born, it has to die too.
It's dead to some people. I can see in some ways how maybe it's become more mainstream.
before. I felt that way before. And I think I felt that way because I felt like my own scene was over. It was being replaced by something else that was coming in and was very different from what our early scene was about. So, but since then, I've seen that it wasn't dead.
I think it will go on and on and on.
Hopefully, the corpse has enough substance that we can stand up on it and reach to a higher level.